In 1999, a civil engineer walked into a grocery store, spent $3,000 on chocolate pudding, and legally walked away with over 1 million frequent flyer miles, enough to fly his whole family around the world. First class from 3 of the biggest airlines on earth. He didn't hack a computer. He didn't lie. He didn't break a single rule. He read the fine print on a coupon, did the math that nobody else bothered to do, and found a hole big enough to fly his whole family through. First class. When the company behind that promotion figured out what he'd done, their lawyers locked themselves in a room and read every word of the fine print, looking for a way out, a cap, a limit, a loophole of their own, because if there was any way to stop him, they were going to find it. And here's the part nobody believes. The story he created with 12,000 pudding cups became so famous that Hollywood turned it into a movie starring one of the biggest comedians on the planet. But we'll get to that. This is how one man turned a 25-cent pudding cup into 1.25 million frequent flyer miles. Why 27 years later, he's still completely untouchable, and how the United States government ended up helping him pay for it. I'm Marlos. This is Money Trail Cases, where I take one outrageous true story and follow the trail all the way to the end. And this one is special because there's no villain here. Nobody got hurt. Nobody got robbed. A man just looked at something every single one of us walks past every single day, a coupon on a frozen dinner, and saw a fortune hiding inside it. So let's go back to the beginning, because the money always leaves a trail, and let's follow it. To understand how this happened, you have to understand who David Phillips is. He's a civil engineer in Northern California, and not the kind who designs bridges and never touches a calculator again. His actual job, the thing he did for a living, was monitor a university's compliance with environmental regulations. In plain English, he got paid to read the fine print. All day. Every day. The boring, buried, nobody reads this fine print that everyone else skips. So his brain was wired a very specific way. Where you and I see a coupon, David Phillips sees a system. And every system, if you read it closely enough, has a weak point. One edge case the people who wrote it never imagined. There's one more thing about him you need to know, and it explains everything that's about to happen. In college, David Phillips taught himself to count cards at blackjack. He got good. Good enough to seriously think about doing it for a living. The only reason he didn't go pro was that he couldn't stand the cigarette smoke in the casinos. So burn that into your mind. This is a man with a probability brain, a card counter's instinct for finding the exact spot where the math tips in his favor, and a day job that built the habit of reading what nobody else will. In May of 1999, all 3 of those things are about to collide in a grocery store aisle. It starts with a flyer. A food company called Healthy Choice is running a promotion. It's simple. Buy 10 Healthy Choice products, mail in the 10 barcodes, and earn 500 frequent flyer miles. And there's a bonus. Mail your barcodes in before the end of May and the miles double. 10 barcodes, 1,000 miles. Now, most people see that flyer and think, that's a nice little deal on a frozen dinner. Maybe I'll grab a few. David Phillips sees something completely different. He sees that the promotion has made one tiny, fatal mistake. It never says which Healthy Choice products count. It just says any Healthy Choice product, frozen dinners, canned soup, snack bars, and, crucially, pudding cups. And it never says the products have to be a certain price. So Phillips does what Phillips does. He goes home and he opens a spreadsheet. Because if any product qualifies, then the only question that matters is this. What is the cheapest Healthy Choice product on earth, and how many miles can $1 buy? He starts hunting. Frozen dinners are $2 each, too expensive. Canned soup, 90 cents, better. And then, at a discount grocery outlet, he finds it. Individual chocolate pudding cups, on clearance, 25 cents each, and every single cup has its own barcode. He runs the math, and the math is insane. 10 pudding cups cost $2.50, and they earn 1,000 frequent flyer miles. Airlines value a mile at roughly 2 cents. A round trip to Europe runs around 50,000 miles, normally $800 to $1,000 in cash. Using pudding, those same 50,000 miles cost him about $125. He's not buying pudding. He's buying airline miles for a fraction of a cent each, and there is no limit on how many he can buy. David Phillips goes to the bank, takes out cash, and turns to his wife, Cindy, and he says the sentence that is about to take over their entire house. We need to buy as much pudding as we possibly can. Here's the problem. The double miles deadline is the end of May. He has about 3 weeks, and this isn't a digital hack you run 1,000,000 times with one line of code. Every single pudding cup has to be physically bought by hand, one store at a time. So he starts driving. Every grocery outlet, every discount store, every clearance aisle within 50 miles. He buys out entire shelves. When a store runs out, he asks the manager to order more cases from the warehouse. He's tracking all of it on spreadsheets because of course he is. He even calculates exactly how much pudding will fit in his minivan. The answer, if you're curious, is 3,456 cups. The clerks start to recognize him, the guy who buys all the pudding, and they start to ask questions. Why on earth does one man need hundreds of cups of chocolate pudding? Now, Phillips has a real fear here. If word gets out what he's doing, someone else could start buying up the same cheap pudding before he's done. So he needs a cover story. And remember what year it is? 1999. The whole world is terrified of Y2K, the idea that every computer on Earth might crash at midnight on New Year's. So when the clerks ask, Phillips just shrugs and says he's stockpiling for Y2K. And in 1999, hoarding pudding for the apocalypse was just barely believable enough that nobody questioned it. Over 3 weeks, he accumulates around 12,150 pudding cups. His garage is packed solid. His wife stares at the towers of cardboard and asks the only reasonable question. David, what are you doing? He shows her the spreadsheet, the numbers. She says, this is insane. And he says, it's not insane, it's arbitrage. But now he hits the wall that should have ended the whole thing. To claim the miles, he doesn't need the pudding. He needs the barcodes, 12,000 of them, peeled by hand off 12,000 cups before the deadline. And he is running out of time. Don't mind me, I've taken a shift in the stockroom, purely for the investigation. And let me tell you, 12,000 cups of chocolate pudding is more pudding than any one human should ever stand next to. I have been back here since Tuesday. There is pudding in places pudding should not be. So while I dig my way out, do me one small favor. If you like one outrageous true story, followed all the way to the end, the kind where the money trail leads somewhere nobody sees coming, hit subscribe and ring that bell. There's a new case every week and you do not want to miss the next one. Go on, then come back, because peeling every last one of these is about to become David's biggest problem, and how he solves it is the smartest move in the whole story. Phillips and his family start peeling. His wife helps. His 2 little daughters sit in the garage peeling labels until their fingers cramp. And it becomes obvious, fast, that there is no way the 4 of them finish 12,000 cups in time. So Phillips makes the single smartest move of the entire story. He picks up the phone and calls the Salvation Army. And he says, I have 12,000 cups of pudding to donate. I just need the barcodes back first. For the charity, it's a perfect trade. Thousands of dollars of food, free for the people they feed. They have volunteers who can peel barcodes all day. Phillips delivers the pudding. The volunteers strip the barcodes, and within days, neat stacks of 12,000 barcodes arrive back at his house. He mails them in before the deadline. But the genius of this move isn't just the free labor, it's the tax code. Under US law, when you donate goods to a registered charity, you can deduct it on your taxes. So Phillips donates the pudding and claims a deduction of $815. Now, I want to be precise here because a lot of people get this wrong. That $815 is not a check from the government. It's a deduction. It lowers the income he's taxed on. In real money, it saves him somewhere around $200 on his tax bill. Not life-changing, but think about what it means. He found a way to make the federal government quietly chip in on a stunt that was about to earn him over 1 million airline miles. The food fed hungry people, and the IRS helped pay for his flights. His real out-of-pocket cost for the whole operation, after that tax saving, lands at roughly $2,900. For the price of a used car, David Phillips is about to receive 1.25 million frequent flyer miles. If, that is, the company actually pays. When Phillips' submission lands at the processing center, somebody notices immediately. 12,150 barcodes. All from one man, all mailed at once. The promotion was run by Conagra, the food giant that owns Healthy Choice. And inside Conagra, somebody runs the numbers and feels their stomach drop. 1.25 million miles. To buy those miles from the airlines, Conagra would have to pay tens of thousands of dollars for a man who spent $3,000 on pudding. So they do exactly what you'd expect. They assemble a team of lawyers and they read the promotion. Every word, every footnote, every clause, hunting for a cap, a limit, any trapdoor in the deal, and one by one, the doors close. The promotion says any healthy choice product. It doesn't exclude pudding. It doesn't set a minimum price. It says mail in 10 barcodes. It doesn't say a maximum. It says 500 miles per submission. It doesn't cap the number of submissions. Somebody in that room floats the obvious idea, we just refuse. We claim fraud. And the answer comes back. On what grounds? He followed every rule we wrote. If we deny him and he sues, he wins. And now it's a news story about a corporation cheating a family man out of a promotion they ran themselves. The meeting ends with no announcement. And 2,000 miles away, David Phillips checks his mailbox. Empty. He checks his frequent flyer account. Nothing. He calls customer service and a careful voice tells him his submission is under review. His friends tell him he's been had, that corporations always weasel out. For weeks, he doesn't know if he just flushed $3,000 and his life savings of effort down the drain. Then, 2 months later, a heavy box arrives on his doorstep. He opens it on his living room floor. Inside are stacks of certificates, 2,506 of them, each one worth 500 miles. He spreads them across the carpet and counts, 1,253,000 miles. ConAgra blinked. They honored the promotion exactly as written and then quietly pulled the offer so it could never happen again. Phillips won. But there's one more gate, and it's the one thing in this entire story he cannot control or outsmart. The airlines own fraud detection. He spreads the risk. He deposits a few 100,000 miles across his United, Delta, and Northwest accounts, so no single airline sees the whole picture. And the bulk, over 1 million miles, goes into his American Airlines A Advantage account. He enters the certificates online and waits for the system to process them. Normally, it's instant, but his account just sits there, processing. 1 hour, 2, 3. And what Phillips doesn't know is that 2,000 miles away, an analyst at American Airlines is staring at a fraud alert on her screen. One customer just dumped over 1 million miles in certificates, all at once, all from the same promotion. The system flagged it automatically. She pulls up his account. She sees it's about to trigger lifetime gold status, the kind of status executives take 10 years of business travel to earn. This man did it in a single day. Her hand goes to the phone. One call to the fraud department ends this. And then she pauses. She checks the certificate codes, all valid. She checks the promotion terms. No cap, no limit. She checks his account history. Clean, no fraud, no chargebacks, nothing. She puts the phone down and she clicks approve. Phillips refreshes the page one more time. His balance updates, over 1 million miles. And underneath it, 2 words appear that change how he will travel for the rest of his life. Lifetime gold, priority boarding, upgrades, lounge access for the price of a used car. He screenshots it because he's terrified that if he blinks, it'll vanish. Now, a friend tips off a journalist and the story breaks. The headline practically writes itself. Man earns 1.25 million frequent flyer miles by buying pudding. And it explodes. CNN, The Wall Street Journal, Time Magazine, The London Times. Overnight, David Phillips becomes the pudding guy, a folk hero, the everyman who read the fine print and beat 3 airlines at their own game. And here's where it goes, somewhere no other story like this ever goes. A few years later, Phillips' phone rings. On the other end is a film director named Paul Thomas Anderson, the man who made Boogie Nights and Magnolia, and Anderson starts awkwardly explaining who he is, and Phillips just cuts him off and says, "I know who you are." Anderson wants to buy his story because he's writing a movie and he wants the pudding loophole to be the heart of it. That movie comes out in 2002. It's called Punch Drunk Love. It stars Adam Sandler. And the entire subplot, the lonely man quietly buying mountains of a cheap product to rack up a fortune in airline miles, is David Phillips. Healthy choice, the company he beat even gave their blessing for the film. Think about that. He didn't just beat the system, he turned beating the system into a story so good that one of the biggest comedians in the world played him on the big screen. How many people can say a Hollywood movie exists because they read a coupon carefully? Phillips' hack went viral in another way too. It taught a whole generation of travel hackers to go hunting for the next loophole. And 9 years later, someone beat his record, using something even better than cheap pudding, something the government would ship to your door for free. In 2008, the US Mint had a problem. Americans wouldn't use the new $1 coins. So the Mint launched a promotion. Buy the coins online, at face value, free shipping, pay with a credit card. They were just trying to get coins into circulation. The travel hackers saw it instantly. Buy $10,000 in coins on a rewards credit card, Earn the miles, the mint ships the coins free, you deposit the coins at your bank, and you use that exact cash to pay off the card. Net cost, $0. And there was no limit. One hacker bought over $1 million in coins and racked up 4 million miles. Completely free before the mint shut it down in 2011. The government paid the shipping. But here's where I'm going to be honest with you in a way a lot of the internet isn't. You'll hear that Phillips' miles let him fly first class for life. That's not quite true, and he'd tell you so himself. 1.25 million miles is a lot. It's somewhere around 50 round trips inside the US, or 31 trips to Europe. By his own count, the whole haul was worth about $50,000. He actually said years later that he spent every last pudding mile within 5 years. It wasn't a bottomless well. It was a really, really good 5 years. And what did he do with them? That's the part that makes people love him. He took his family to see the world. His wife Cindy, his 2 young daughters. First class seats to Europe over Easter, Italy, Barcelona, London. Over the next several years, the pudding guy and his family flew to dozens of countries on chocolate pudding. Although it wasn't all smooth flying. He got so addicted to chasing these deals that less than a year later, he pulled off another one, a promotion called Latin Pass that handed out 1 million miles for flying 10 Latin American airlines in 6 months. He knocked it out in 2 trips over 10 days. Time magazine reported that his wife finally grounded him after she found out that while she was home doing the laundry, Mr. Spreadsheet was lying on a beach in the Caribbean during a layover, like James Bond. Over his life, by the way, David Phillips has racked up somewhere between 5 and 6 million miles across promotion after promotion. The pudding was just the one that made him famous. So here's the question I'll leave with you. The one his story has been starting arguments about for 27 years. Was David Phillips a genius? A man who simply read the fine print the rest of us are too lazy to read and took exactly what the company offered? Or was he a freeloader who exploited an honest mistake that was never meant for him? Here's what's not up for debate. He didn't lie, he didn't cheat, he didn't break one single rule. ConAgra wrote the promotion, ConAgra honored it, and they lost tens of thousands of dollars on a man who spent $3,000 on pudding. He just read every word they did, and they didn't. And the pudding guy, he never got in trouble. He never had to. Today, David Phillips isn't some shadowy hustler. He's a respected executive at the University of California, running their energy and sustainability programs. The man who beat 3 airlines with pudding grew up to be exactly the kind of buttoned-up professional you'd never suspect. And his advice, after a lifetime of this, is simple. The best deals are always buried in the fine print that everybody else skips. And when you find one, you have to move fast because the good ones never last long. His exact words. Companies still make mistakes like this all the time. So the next time you walk past a coupon, a promotion, a too good to be true offer with no limit printed on it, just remember, somewhere out there, a quiet engineer with a spreadsheet is already doing the math. I'm Marlo, and this has been Money Trail Cases, where every story is just one more trail, followed all the way to the end. And if this one made you think of somebody who would never believe it actually happened, send it to them. That share is the single best thing you can do to keep cases like this coming. There's another trail already waiting for you, right there on the screen, so go follow that one next, because the money always leaves a trail.